So now let's look at an example of the consumer maximizing utility between buying two goods, swords and bread. Okay, so the budget line you have here is $7. The price of a sword is $1. The price of a loaf of bread is $1. And what we want to know is how many loaves of bread and swords is this person going to buy given their budget line. And we know they're going to buy the amount of swords and bread that maximizes their utility. How do we find that? The first thing we do is we find the marginal utilities for each good. So the marginal utility of swords divided by the price, which happens to be $1, is when you go from 0 swords to 1 sword, your utility goes up by 12, so the marginal utility is 12. Then you divide it by the price. Then the next amount, the next sword gives you an extra utility of 11.5. And you divide by 1. Then the next one gives you extra utility of 11. And you divide by 1. And you just keep going like that. So the next one is 10. The next one is 9. Then 8. Then 7. Oops. Okay. What this says is if I spend the first $1 on swords, I get 1 sword, and that 1 sword gives me extra utility of 12. If I bought 1 sword and now I spend another $1 on swords, I'd get the second sword, and that would give me 11.5 units of utility. Okay. Now let's do the same thing for bread. So here's the marginal utility of bread divided by 1. Okay. And now, I don't get any here, but the first $1 gives me extra utility of 20. The next $1 brings me extra utility, oh wait, this should be 22. Okay. So the first one brings me extra utility of 22. The next one brings me extra utility of 20. The next one brings me extra utility of 18, etc., etc. So I keep looking at the differences here. This is 16, 14, 12, and 10. Okay. Now what we're going to do is look at when the extra utility is greater, or for which good the extra utility is greater. Okay? So right now we're sitting here, we're not spending any money on anything. Okay? Where do we want to spend the first $1? If you spend the first $1 on bread, you're going to get 22 units of utility, where if you spend it on swords, you're only going to get 12 units. Okay? So you're going to spend the first $1 on bread. Okay? Then, what about the second $1? The second $1, if you spend it on bread, you get 20 units of utility instead of 12. So you're going to spend it on bread again. So you keep here, this is bigger than 12, so you're going to buy bread. This is bigger than 12, so you're going to do $1, 2, 3, 4, $5 you spent on bread already. Now, the next $1, if you spend it on bread, brings you 12 units of utility, but that's the same as you get from swords. So let's say you buy a sword. So now you have 5 units of bread and 1 sword. Then, if you're going to buy another sword, you're going to spend another $1 on swords. That only brings you 11.5 units of utility, whereas the next $1 on bread brings you $12 of utility. So you're going to spend the next $1 on bread and that's $7. You spent $6 on buying bread, that's 6 loaves of bread, and you bought 1 sword. So this person is going to buy 6 loaves of bread and 1 sword. Okay. Another way to see that is by seeing when the marginal utility of swords divided by 1 equals the marginal utility of bread divided by 1. So here's a 12, and here's a 12, and here's a 10, and here's a 10. So what we get, is that the marginal utility of swords divided by 1 equals the marginal utility of bread divided by 1 equals 12 at swords is 1, bread is 6, and 10 at swords is 4 and bread is 7. Okay. Now we can tell which one is the right one. How do you tell which one is the right one? Because it has to cost $7, right? This costs $1 because the price is $1. This costs $6. This costs $7. Okay. Now notice the next one. This costs $4. This costs $7. This cost $11. This next bundle down here, 4 and 7, would have brought you more utility, but you can't afford it because you only have $7. So what we just saw is that with this budget and the price of swords being $1, that this person is going to buy 6 loaves of bread and 1 sword because that maximizes utility. But what happens if we change the price of swords? So let's look at the example again when now the price of swords is going to be 50 cents. So there's a sale on swords. So let's go back to our total utility. Okay, again, here's swords. Here's total utility. And here's bread. And here's the total utility of bread. Okay. So what happens now if we lower the price here to 50 cents? Okay. Now what we're going to do again is find the marginal utility of swords now divided by the new price, which is 50 cents. So we find the marginal utility of swords divided by 50 cents. Okay. And that's now 12. Now it's divided by 50 cents. So that's 24. Now it's 11.5 divided by 50 cents. That's 23, and we just keep going like that. Well, it's 22, 10 divided by 50 cents. That's 20, and we just keep going. Okay, for bread, we get the same thing that we got before, right? So we get the marginal utility of bread divided by $1. So that's 22 divided by $1. That's 20 divided by $1, 18 divided by $1, and we just keep going. Okay, 16 divided by $1, 14 divided by $1, 12 divided by $1, and 10 divided by $1. Okay. Okay, so now what we do is we find when the marginal utilities divided by the prices are equal. So here's a 22 where bread is 1. Here's a 22 where swords are 3. Here's 20 when bread is 2. Here's 20 when swords is 4. Okay? So I'm just going to keep going like that and find when these two things are equal. Okay? And this is what I'm going to get. All right. I'm going to get the marginal utility, that's not in dollars, the marginal utility of swords divided by 50 cents equal the marginal utility of bread divided by $1, and they equal. Okay. So what we're looking for is when the marginal utility of swords divided by the price of 50 cents equal the marginal utility of bread divided by $1. So those two things equal 22 when swords is 3 and bread is 1. They equal 20 when swords is 4 and bread is 2. They equal 18 when swords is 5 and bread is 3. They equal 16 when swords is 6 and bread is 4. And they equal 14 when swords is 7 and bread is 5. Okay. Which one is this which one are we going to choose now? We're going to choose the one for which we can afford. So this cost $1.50 plus 1, so this costs $2.50, too little. This costs 2, this costs 2, that's $4. This costs $5.50. This costs $7, aha. And this costs $8.50. So the amount that we're going to buy here is going to be 6 swords and 4 loaves of bread. And if you look at all the other combinations of the good that cost $7 with a price of 50 cents and a price of 1, you're going to find that the one that gives you the maximum utility is going to be this one. Okay? And the amount of utility you're going to get is 137.5. Okay? So now we've got 2 points. We showed when we had $7 and the price of bread is $1 and the price of a sword is $1, the person buys 1 sword. Everything else being equal, the person has, the price of a sword is 50 cents, the price of bread is $1, and the person has $7. Now they're going to buy 6 swords. So that gives us a demand curve for swords that looks like this. Okay. So here's the quantity of swords. Here's the price of swords. Everything equal. You buy 1 sword when the price is $1, and when the price is 50 cents, you buy 6. Those are 2 points on your demand curve, and that's how utility analysis allows us to derive the demand curve for one of the goods sorts. Okay? We could do exactly the same thing for bread and leave everything the same except changing the price of bread, and that would allow us to derive the demand for bread. So remember, what the person is going to do is, along the budget line, choose the point that maximizes his or her utility given they're on the budget line.